One quiet night, one reflective photograph, one sentence about silence, and suddenly the internet is asking questions no one officially answered. When Shukai shared a single image from a luxury hotel balcony, it didn't feel like a routine post. It felt like a pause, deliberate, meaningful, and impossible to ignore. And then came the whispers. Was Tan Song-yoon somehow linked to that night? Some moments do not announce themselves loudly. They arrive quietly, altering the emotional temperature before anyone realizes something has shifted. That night, when Shukai shared a single image from a hotel balcony, there was no sense of performance, no polished staging, no attempt to impress. Instead, the atmosphere felt restrained, almost contemplative, as if the image existed for the person behind the camera more than for the audience in front of it. Hotels, especially secluded and elegant ones, often represent transition. They are places where people pause between destinations, identities, or decisions. Seen through this lens, the image suggested less of a spectacle and more of a threshold. A moment suspended between past exhaustion and future uncertainty. It wasn't dramatic, but it was different. And that difference quietly reset the tone of the conversation surrounding him. The caption was brief, almost weightless, a reflection on silence. Yet, silence in the digital age is rarely empty. When public figures speak less, audiences tend to listen more closely, not to what is said, but to what is missing. In this case, the absence of explanation became the most striking element of all. There was no attempt to guide interpretation, no reassurance, no denial, no confirmation. This kind of silence can feel unsettling because it refuses to satisfy curiosity. It resists closure, and in doing so, it invites projection. For some, the words felt like emotional honesty. For others, they read as a message intended for someone unseen. But perhaps the deeper truth is simpler. Silence can be an act of self-preservation, a way of reclaiming meaning in a world that constantly demands commentary. Whether silence truly speaks depends less on intention and more on the listener. The appearance of Tan Song-yoon in the public discussion did not happen randomly. It emerged from emotional memory rather than concrete evidence. Over time, audiences form attachments not just to individuals, but to the emotional atmosphere they create together. Shukai and Tan Song-yoon have long been associated with a sense of calm chemistry. Not explosive, but steady, believable, and human. That shared history matters, even when nothing new is confirmed. When rumours surfaced suggesting overlapping locations, the internet didn't react because it had proof. It reacted because it recognised a familiar emotional pattern. Importantly, neither side addressed the speculation, and that restraint allowed imagination to take the lead. In this way, Tan Song-yoon's name entered the narrative not as a statement of fact, but as a reflection of collective expectation, shaped by memory, affection, and the human tendency to search for continuity in stories we already care about. In recent years, a quiet shift has been taking place across the global entertainment industry. More artists are choosing not to disappear entirely, but to engage selectively, practicing what might be called digital restraint. Digital silence is not withdrawal, it is intention. By sharing less, artists regain control over what remains private. By avoiding immediate explanations, they protect moments that might otherwise be consumed, analysed, and flattened into headlines. Seen this way, the hotel post becomes less about mystery and more about boundary setting. A statement that some experiences do not need to be translated into public narratives in real time. In a culture that rewards constant visibility, choosing silence is an act of quiet confidence. It says, not everything meaningful needs to be explained, and not every pause requires permission. Sometimes privacy is not secrecy. It is simply self-respect. What followed the post reveals something important about modern audiences. We are no longer passive observers. Faced with ambiguity, viewers instinctively begin to interpret. We connect dots, recall past moments, analyze timing, and search for emotional logic. In doing so, we become co-authors of the story. This is not necessarily a flaw. It is a reflection of emotional investment. However, it also blurs responsibility. At what point does interpretation turn into assumption? When does curiosity become pressure? The rapid spread of theories surrounding the post shows how quickly silence can be filled, not by facts, but by collective imagination. Each person brings their own hopes, fears, and expectations into the narrative. In the end, the story grew, not because of what was shared, but because of what the audience needed the moment to mean. The real twist in this story may not lie in hidden connections or secret meetings. It lies in the refusal to perform clarity. In an industry built on visibility, the most unexpected move is choosing restraint. Instead of amplifying speculation or shutting it down, the situation was allowed to exist in its natural ambiguity. This kind of twist is subtle. It doesn't shock the senses. It challenges assumptions. It asks whether every public moment must be decoded and whether every personal pause must be explained. Perhaps the most radical idea here is that meaning does not always come from revelation. Sometimes it comes from allowing uncertainty to remain. In that sense, the story redefines drama itself, not as noise, but as tension held quietly, with dignity and emotional maturity. There may be no immediate answers, no official statements, no clear direction, and that, in itself, may be the point. Not every story moves forward with announcements or conclusions. Some unfold slowly, shaped by time rather than reaction. What remains certain is that the moment has already shifted how audiences perceive presence, absence, and intention. Whether this chapter leads to renewed collaboration, deeper privacy, or simply personal balance is something only time will reveal. For now, the pause remains unresolved, reflective, and open-ended. And perhaps the most meaningful question is not what happened, but what we are learning about attention, expectation, and the quiet strength of choosing when to speak and when not to. If you appreciate thoughtful storytelling beyond surface-level headlines, and if you believe some stories deserve silence as much as attention, subscribe to LVT-SHOWBIZ for more global showbiz narratives told with depth, care, and emotional insight. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for reflecting with us. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next story.